welcome back to Isabel's Digest. Today I'm bringing you my impressions about my August readings. So let's begin, okay? I'm gonna start with a nonfiction book and one that you already have a book digestion about. Becoming by Michelle Obama. If you haven't, please check out my video where I do a full book review, but you absolutely must know that I enjoy this book from the beginning to the end. This is the coming of age story of Michelle Obama, so it's a nonfiction memoir book. Personally, I adore memoirs, so it was everything that I was hoping for. I loved it. I don't think I have to speak about it too much. Michelle Obama was the first lady of the United States. She's married to Barack Obama. But other than that, the rest of her story is also pretty interesting. If you want to go check it out, it's very inspiring, very well written, very enjoyable, and I gave it a 5 out of 5. Next, I read this book. It's very small, as you can see, and it's called Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast by Oscar Wilde. I really don't know what genre this could fit in. It's basically a collection of quotes. I get this feeling that this is like a notebook that Oscar Wilde would just have around once in a while, where he would just write his thoughts that will eventually convert into essays or just arguments that he will have. But this is a very concise book. As you can see, they're quotes. These quotes do have an arrangement of how are they organized. And what I mean by that is that they're not just random. They follow certain themes like marriage, politics, art, and morality. So you get a sense of 10 quotes about marriage or 5 quotes about morality, and then you kind of keep moving. You just get Wilde's characteristic wit, a lot of humor, sarcasm, and just general spiciness. I believe this is a really good entryway if you want to know more about Oscar Wilde but you just don't want to commit. And if you're already a solid Oscar Wilde fan, this is gonna be just delightful for you. You're gonna have a laugh. 3 out of 5, not life-changing, very quotable because it's a book of quotes, but just good for a general lazy afternoon in a coffee shop. Really good if you're looking for some Instagram captions, or more if you just are curious about what Oscar Wilde thought. Coming up, we have Normal People. Normal People by Sally Rooney. This book absolutely destroyed me. In a good way, I think. Or maybe in a bad way. I wouldn't know. I like being destroyed by books, but this was just way too much. I know, I feel like I mention crying a lot in this channel, like in every video or like every other video I say, oh, this book made me cry. But I generally cry a lot while reading, and that's something I enjoy and like, because that's how literature makes me feel, and I get very emotional and I get very invested, and this book was not the exception. This book I started around 4 p.m. on a Friday. I had to force myself to go to sleep because I didn't want to finish too quickly, but it was just useless. By Saturday morning I was just done. I couldn't sleep too much. I just left for a couple of hours and I just had to finish it. It's so amazing. I'm honestly obsessed for life, and I'm gonna read anything that Sally Rooney writes in the future. I still need to read Conversations with Friends, which I think is her first novel. She's very young, she's very talented, and I'm living for it. So I'm gonna read you what the back of the novel claims. Connell and Marianne grew up in the same small town, which I think it's in Ireland.
I remember clearly. I just read it too fast, honestly.
But the similarities end there. At school, Connell is popular and well-liked, while Marianne is a loner. And kind of strange, honestly. But when the two strike up a conversation, awkward but electrifying, something life-changing begins. And this book honestly changed me as well. Normal People is the story of mutual fascination, friendship, and love. It takes us from the first conversation to the years beyond, in the company of two people who try to stay apart, but find that they just can't. I would totally add to this description that Normal People is also about codependency and learning what healthy and unhealthy relationships are. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships with like partners. I'm talking about relationships with family and friends, which can turn very unhealthy all of a sudden. But it's not a judgy book. It's not imparting judgment of what it's good or what it's bad. You just realize it by your own because of how that characters feel. And sometimes we're stuck in these relationships with people which are either from our family or our friends group, which are very hurting for us, but not a lot of us are very aware of them when we are in their situation. But when you see them, when you're reading Normal People, you're just kind of like, okay, who let you steal my diary? Why are you in my head? Why are these characters so important to me all of a sudden? But it's really because they're so real and they're so imperfect in their own beautiful way. You just want to protect them. It's a great book to read when you're young, especially if you're maybe around my age, which it's the age Marianne and Connell are. We really don't know what's happening in our lives. I think it's very easy to get confused because of how much we want to fit in, that we don't think if it's an actual good fit for us. And this book explores all those types of relationship while Marianne and Connell grow up, fall apart, separate, go back together, and deal with their own baggage. As the book says, Connell and Marianne are very different people. Connell starts being all popular, but he's still a very shy person and with a lot of mental health issues, that it's so refreshing to see it, this representation, when there's not a prototype of how someone looks with mental issues. And I think it's a good message. It's not preachy, it's just natural, it's organic, it's lovely. I love it. The plot involves secret dating, which is one of my guilty pleasures. I love reading about that. It's not corny, it's smart, it's witty. That I know there's a TV show. I haven't watched it yet because I know I'm gonna cry again and I'm not ready. I'm not emotionally ready to watch this, but it's gonna be great. I just know it. Like, book humor and witty characters in books are not always greatly translated into screen adaptations, but I think it's gonna be good. It's a solid read. It flows like water. And I'm just gonna shut up because I want to make a video about this and I'm not gonna run out of material. 4.5 out of 5. When I finished reading it, I was like, this is a 5. But thinking about it, it kind of makes me want to give it a 4.5. I wanted more development for Marianne at this book. I think Connell gets there. He really looks for professional help and he tries to sort out his shit. But Marianne was still a character that I wanted more of her at the end, which I know that that's the part when it's realistic, because both of them are not just gonna grow at the same speed. But that doesn't, I don't know, I just felt like I just needed a little bit more from Marianne to go and say 5 out of 5. But 4.5 is a pretty good rating if you ask me. It's probably one of my favorite books, even if it's not a 5 out of 5. And I love it. And I think this novel is gonna be a contemporary classic. Afterwards, we have the 1865 classic, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. In college, I have this classmate who was working on her thesis. It's about muses and the myth around them, and she talked a lot about Alice. I think it was part of her thesis, and I was very intrigued by it. I bought this copy at City Lights bookstore in San Francisco. It's an anniversary edition. It includes illustrations by Salvador Dali, and it's just gorgeous. It's a beautiful edition. It has really good commentary at the beginning, some literary analysis. Beautiful edition. See it over here, and it's hardcover. I mean, what can I say? Everyone knows what this book is about. Everyone knows the story. I enjoy it. I think that the simplicity of the language is very good for getting the message across, but it masterly creates Wonderland and this other world without having to be ridiculously difficult to understand. It just effortlessly materializes in front of yourself. I give it a 3 out of 5, probably just because I don't know what I expected. I probably expected more, but I don't know. I think that with stories that you already know and you have watched movies and you have read other retellings of them and you have read, I don't know, analysis and stuff like that, you just kind of, if the original source doesn't have a lot to offer to you as an extra, it just feels not a disappointment, but like that you did things wrong and it was my mistake because I had to read it first. But I don't know, it didn't happen in my childhood. It just happened until up today, and that's why I give it a 3 out of 5. It's not about the story, it's probably more about my experience. And 3 is not a bad rating. Like, 3 is not a bad rating. I read horrible books and I give them a 1 because I can give them less, but 3, the majority of the books I read are usually 3 or 4. 3 just means that it was okay. 3 was okay. 4, it was like, oh, really good. And 5 is like, this book, it's amazing, destroyed me. I don't know, it doesn't even matter. Like, as long as you want to read it and you have a good time reading it, it doesn't matter what rating you have, honestly. Lastly, I finished the month with Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luiselli. I love this book. This is amazing. This is a really good book. But this was a reread, or maybe not, or maybe yes. I had to read this book for a class. I was taking the archive within the comparative literature department, which was a class that made me a comparative lit minor. But that's another story. And we got us at the end of the semester, we got assigned the first 100 pages of this book, and I ended up writing my final research paper about this book. But I always felt like, why did I just read the first 100 pages? The professor sent them to us, so I didn't have my own copy. But I really loved this book. The first 10 pages that I read, I was like, okay, this is something I like. And for Christmas, my brother gave it to me, but I just didn't have enough time to read it and enjoy it. So I left it until August because I knew that I was gonna have a lot of free time this month, because like the other books, I read the first 2 weeks of August. So I really took this slowly. And let me tell you, I love Valeria Luiselli. I think she's an incredible, underrated Mexican author. She was born in Mexico City. She grew up in South Korea and South Africa. She has traveled the world. She lives in New York right now. She's very involved in immigrant movements and with looking for national identities, or if there's such a thing like identity. And she's brilliant. She has enormous talent. Like, I never know how to make the summaries because I don't want to give too much, so I'm gonna stick with reading this. A mother and a father set out with their 2 children, a boy and a girl, driving from New York to Arizona in the heat of summer. Their destination, Apacheria, the place that the Apaches want call home. Why Apaches? As a 10-year-old son. Because they were the last of something, answers his father. In their car, they play games and sing along to music, but on the radio, there is news about the immigration crisis. Thousands of kids trying to cross the southwestern border into the United States but getting detained or lost in the desert along the way. As the family drives through Virginia to Tennessee, across Oklahoma and Texas, we sense that they're on the brink of a crisis on their own. A fissure is growing between the parents, one the children can almost feel beneath their feet. They are led inexorably. They're led to a grand, harrowing adventure, both in the desert landscape and within the chambers of their own imaginations. Told through several compelling stories, blending text, sounds, and images, Lost Children Archive is an astonishing feat of literary virtuosity. It is a richly engaging story of how we document our experiences and how we remember the things that matter to us the most. With urgency and empathy, it takes us deep into the lives of one remarkable family as it proves the nature of justice and equality today. As this description says, we follow the family, but we have all these other problems around them, but also the problems within the marriage and how it affects the kids and how the stories affects the kids. And it's done remarkably, with a focus on documenting and archiving and just literature on its own, and how it's always political, and how this couple, which were working in a project together, now that they're not working in a project together, now they have to figure out how to live their own life while being married with their own kids. The migration problem, the Apache stories and the Native Americans. And I just enjoy the refreshing of a plot so many times done of the American road trip, which is always masculine. It is always so stupid, or at least I'm just done with the American road trip from a masculine point of view. But we have a female mother figure who's incredibly intelligent, and we get to see all these conflicts and all the landscape and sounds from the female perspective, which I thought it was very refreshing from that plot narrative. And I love how they always switch focus to the more important topics, which are the non-fictional topics, the migration crisis, and the narrative from the media and from the reality of the crisis. You remember, I live at the border, I grew up at the border, I know what this book is talking about, and I can almost feel it, and I cried a lot of times by reading it. And we get to have the voice of the Apaches, the last of something, and the Native Americans that we almost never get to hear from. And it's just a story that it's told in whispers and in folklore, and this book really amplifies that and like turns up the volume and say, we are gonna talk about these issues, and we're gonna talk about family, and we're gonna talk about marriage, and we're just gonna talk about everything. And it's amazing, it's intelligent, it's well written. Honestly, it was the best way to conclude August. I took a break from reading because I was really chaotically reading, and I got my wisdom to remove it and didn't want to do anything, so I just spent my day sleeping and on TikTok. But I'm back to reading reading, and this was a really good conclusion of the month. I concluded a little bit early, but I didn't start anything. So this is where the wrap up ends. Yes, by the way, I give this a 5 out of 5. Really good, really great written. I just wish Valeria Luiselli will get more recognition in Mexico, but just anywhere, honestly. In the United States, she is getting awards, and she works at NYU, I think, and she's just so brilliant. I just hope that she keeps writing like this, because I'm gonna buy them and read them. So I'm back at reading. As I said, I still don't know what my September readings is gonna start with. Probably gonna be something short because the heat doesn't help with my patience, but I'll let you know. But that's all. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please like my video and subscribe to my channel. All my social media accounts are linked down below, and I hope you give all these beautiful books a chance. If you haven't read them so far, go read them. If you have read them, or you have any recommendations from some of these authors or similar works, or just anything, just leave me a comment and just keep reading. I'll see you next week. Bye.